Hello and welcome to a very important and necessary podcast, we feel, rather than it being a special podcast, because we're talking today all about what it means to go through an awakening and how we can handle that in the modern world and life and all those demands that we have. I'm just waiting for beautiful Ellen to join. I'm so excited to have her back after my solo time. And the fact that we've both been doing our own form of ascension, awakening, and integration. Hello, Ellen, are you there? Hey, Ellen, you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you, beautiful. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Goddess. How are you?
I'm so good. I've just been saying that we've actually gone through our own up leveling behind the scenes as well. Do you want to
Mhm.
share about a very brief glimpse into what it's been like for you traveling around Australia? And I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that.
I think that's another episode. I think just keeping to ascension symptoms and spiritual awakenings. I guess, they can all vary in intensity. And I think just very quickly, February for me was a very intense, I guess, ascension symptoms that manifest itself as like really severe chronic panic attacks. Couldn't sleep. And I think the thing that kind of got me through was I just kept turning within, using my healing tools that I had, and just kept shifting things out as they came up. Because ascension really is a kind of like an ego death. It's bringing up the stuff that no longer serves you, so that who you really are, which is divine, can start to emerge through the cracks. Really, so yeah, that's probably my
Mm,
quick overview. And what about you, Sweet? Unless you've already spoken about it.
beautiful. Well, yeah, I've definitely got to say April has been my worst month.
Mhm.
I didn't know, somebody actually mentioned that Easter is always on a full moon. I did not know
Oh,
that, and that's why
interesting.
Easter's always tumultuous, because that's why it changes
Mhm.
date. And then someone else I was working with, they said that April is always like hell through that for them. Like every year, it's always April, the whole month of April. And I never, I never thought about it, but yeah, looking back now, this year, April
Mhm.
horrendous, and I've always had stuff happen around Easter. I,
Mhm.
I don't. I've always attached to the religious connotation with Jesus and the rebirth and resurrection, and almost like I went through the same process of going through this death on Good Friday and then coming through as a resurrection. And it's a little bit like that at Christmas. At Christmas, I
Mm.
go into this real horrible funk, hate life, and then New Year's, I'm like, yay, New Year's, woo, party time, rebirth. I
Oh,
don't
bless.
know if that's anything to do with Jesus or God. Who knows?
I mean, sometimes on a sort of a higher level as well, like that might be your soul's, like, because I mean, really at the end of the day, like calendar days and months and years are man made.
Mm,
That it's sort of like something that we've created to kind of give us some structure and systems, but we might say associate those parts of the calendar for an opportunity for us to kind of heal and release certain things at certain times,
mm.
yeah, but it can happen at, like, I guess we've spoken about before, it can happen any time, any moment, totally unexpectedly, just when you think you're doing well. And then it's like, boom.
Ex- Especially when you think you're doing well.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, here's another layer, here's another level. As they say, what's that saying? Every new level has a new devil.
Oh, I love that. Yes.
Mm,
Because yeah, it's like you reach there or you reach to a certain level and you go, "Oh, this is nice. I like this." And
yeah.
I said to someone it's like a wave today, and it fools you into thinking that another wave's not coming. You can just lie back, float and lift your little toes up and just, enjoy floating in the ocean, and then bam, another wave comes. So I
That's
said it's best to have your surfboard with you and just get on with it. Like, and it's funny, before my most recent one, I had
Mhm.
it in my head. It was like, suck it up, sister. It was literally like that, just came through so wild. It was like, listen, just deal with, and I know we've got to be gentle with ourselves, but it
Mhm.
was just suck it up. It's part of the process, and just don't attach to it. Just
That's
let it
it.
show
Yeah.
you. And you mentioned about awakening. That I've been in and out of a lot of awake groups.
Mhm.
So lots of people, because it's on trend, think, I'm woke or awake, and what does that mean? But that it does come in different sizes and varieties, doesn't it? And it feels very
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
each and every time.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
So how then? I know you've taught me a lot already about how to cope with that, and
Mhm.
still identifying, okay, oh, this is what's happening, purge to emerge. There are a lot of things we can do. Everybody says journal, and I sat the other night
Mhm.
and I thought, oh, the last thing I want to do is journal.
Yeah.
But I did. I went there, but very quickly it turned into lying on the floor and crying for about an hour.
Perfect. Perfect. That's your process. Perfect. I think there's no like right or wrong way with, dealing with sensation symptoms. It's like having your toolkit. So I know for me personally now, I just use quantum freedom healing. Like I go into the body, I target where it's manifested on the body and I shift it out, and awakening really, because a lot of us, what's happening, especially as well in the collective consciousness, there's a split happening. And we've seen it happening since probably 2020, a big split happening in the consciousness of our planet where there's a lot of people staying in 3D. And for those of you that might
Mm,
not really understand what the fuck 3D is or 5D is, and for a while there I didn't know, I was like, what the fuck is all this 3D, 5D shit going on?
mm,
And then I've come to understand 3D is kind of the frequency of the ego. So there's nothing inherently bad about the ego. The ego is there to kind of guide and support your spiritual being through the physical world. But it's when it gets into a bit gnarliness is when you identify yourself with your ego as you. And everything's about the external world. Everything's kind of looking for external validation. So what's been happening in the last few years is that the ego is being literally cracked open. It's like,
mm,
and
mm,
people then are waking up and realizing, oh, hang on, I'm actually not just my body. I'm not just my job. I'm not just this identity. I'm far more than that. So then what you've got now is people that are awakening and ascending into 5D consciousness, which is awareness of self and others and their spiritual essence. And then you've got people still staying in the 3D dimension. And anyone that's holding on to 3D ego is having a really fucking hard time,
mm,
because
mm.
it's like the universe is going, you're either coming with us or you're going to stay there. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's
Yeah.
what's coming through my pipes.
Well, yeah, and my mum went a step further to say that there was going to be an in-between group.
Mm.
So it's like you stay in the third or the fifth, or you're kind of in between, but you're living with both. And I instantly went, "Oh God, is that me?" Because it can be very scary to
Yeah.
let go fully, and you kind
Mm-hmm.
of like all the other physical stuff. Like I love going to the gym, and I love. There's a lot of human stuff I love,
Mm.
and it can be very scary to let go of that. But
Yeah, but
then,
it's
yeah, yeah.
I think the things that they like your fitness and things that you enjoy doing, like things that benefit you and support you and that feel good for you, like there's nothing wrong with that. And I think with Ascension, there's no rules, there's no shoulds, there's no have tos. It's like it's about your own personal evolution and co-creation with the divine. Like just because even you and I today talking about this, like if it doesn't resonate with your own truth and understanding, it doesn't feel good and aligned for you, you don't have to take it on. And I think this thing about awakening is a lot of people are sort of thinking it's become almost like you were saying before, like a bit of a fad, like a fashion thing. Oh,
Mm,
look at me, I'm so awake.
yeah.
But the ego is a bit of a sneaky bitch. Like the ego will kind of sneak its way
Very.
into spiritual communities and awake and aware. And yeah, it's quite interesting. And I always sort of think, well, you can really show how someone's awake and aware is that their level of how they can hold their own power and their own self-worth, love, peace in the face of a lot of blur. It's
Mm,
like, whereas people that are very easily triggered or very easily offended, it's like, oh, you've still got a little bit of work there to do.
and defensiveness. I see that a
Mm.
lot,
Yes.
and I have to catch that if I feel that. It's like, it's like hang on, because that is usually just ego trying to bump yourself up and not be humble enough to see truth. And
Mhm.
sometimes you're not ready for these
Yeah.
things, and it's or receive information or see certain things.
Hmm.
Um, Yeah, it's very, very tricky. That's why I wanted to jump on and maybe share some of our experiences so that we can give clarity
Yeah,
around it.
absolutely. Yeah, because I
Um,
think, sorry,
yeah.
you go.
No, 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 you go.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that really, I think at the end of the day, as we were just saying, people making sort of Ascension this kind of fad, like there is ego groups out there that like, look how awake and aware I am. But really, awake is really just another word for awareness, like being present, like awake and aware to who you really are. And who we all really are is a child of God. It doesn't matter what level of the consciousness scale you're at. Like you can be totally in 3D, 2D, 1D, and you're still loved and adored unconditionally by the divine. You could be at 3D, 4D, 5D, 60, 100D, and you're still loved and adored unconditionally by the divine. So we're all on our own unique timelines. We're all in our own unique journey. And I think however Ascension symptoms come up for you, it's like, also asking the divine, like there's something I now do. Like the other night I felt all this really tense energy, and I just said, God, take this, release it. And I could feel this almost like a vacuum over my head, just sucking it all out. And I just felt this instant relief. And so sometimes we forget that we have our own unique connection to God, source, universe, whatever you want to call our creator. And we forget to ask for help. And just asking the divine, please help me, please guide me and show me the best tools and processes to deal with this, or please help me to shift this. Because in essence, the energy of who you are is divine. It's unconditional love. It is God, and we forget that. And I think ego kind of makes it something that is separate from you and something you have to try to achieve to become awake and aware. But it's just like you are already awake and aware. You've just been asleep for a few thousand lifetimes. So you're waking up to remembering who you really are in physical form. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And it resonated a couple of times about togetherness, because when the defensiveness comes from the ego, and it's so interesting, even just observing conversations and how you deal with them, because then when you're always trying to make someone wrong and make yourself right, that then there's projection as well, and it's causing separation, and that's what makes it so kind of yuck when you see these awake groups and they're like, well, no, you're wrong and you're wrong and you're this, and you're like, hang on, just stop. Like, this is not the purpose of this. The whole purpose is to see we are all one, we are all divine, as you say, and we're all love. So when you have acceptance and it comes back to Buddha and Jesus, there's just love and acceptance and compassion. And I really do want to share. I had a breakthrough recently whereby it's the classic one of I was struggling to forgive someone who abused me, and it was really, really deep, really, really deep pain, and connected to childhood. It was all this stuff that I knew and I could unpack logically and rationally, and I understood it. But the way that someone put it to me was, when you imagine that abuser and you imagine them as a newborn child that have been born into that environment that they went through, and the words were, he didn't stand a chance. And it put things in a different perspective of this huge compassion. And it's not that I'm letting him off the hook, I'm sticking to boundaries, but it was this huge breakthrough of like, I no longer fear you and I no longer hate you, because when you suddenly see them as a newborn baby, you go, yeah, you didn't stand a chance. And you've still been given the opportunity to work through this stuff, and he won't, and he will come back in many, many lifetimes, and that's his journey, and that's okay. But as long as they can never hurt me anymore, I just had this huge compassion, and it was just such a release, because that compassion ultimately, as you say, released into the collective, released back into me. So I let go of my hurt and pain and hatred. And I think that's what your message is, the fact that this is all a collective thing. We're all going through at different levels because we are all one, and that's why it's called Ascension. We are all ascending at different rates, at different times, at different things, for the collective, for everybody.
Absolutely, because as you said, we're all one. And I think as well, like, there's a really beautiful saying that I learned once, because obviously, you and I have gone through narcissistic abuse in our relationships, and it brings up a lot of trauma. But something that I learned through that process was that the bigger the asshole, the biggest triggers, the person that triggers you the most is your greatest teacher, and is actually an angel in disguise, because they're coming in like to basically trigger and bring up anything that you still haven't healed and released within you, and where you still haven't self-partnered. So they can also, like, I find for me, my narcissistic relationship, I look back on now and I have so much love, gratitude and appreciation for him, because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have been activated into a massive spiritual rebirth. It wouldn't have like awakened me and turned me to basically return home to the source within me, you know. So everything serves. And I think if someone triggers you or upsets you or pisses you off, it's actually not about that person. They're just giving you an opportunity to look at, oh, where am I still unconscious? Where am I still holding on to patterns and belief systems that don't serve me? Like, it's always an inside job. And just quickly, I remember a few years ago, one of my crazy ex-boyfriends back in the day was raging at me, and he actually
Which
taught me a
one?
very interesting spiritual truth. And he said, when you point the finger at me, there's always 3 fingers pointing back at you. And I thought,
Mm.
oh, that's a really good analogy. I'm going to take that. Thank you.
Mirrors. And you know, on a very subtle level, I usually drive around very self-righteous and I'm like, oh, you cut me up, and oh, that was dangerous. And I'm like, oh, and I'm wagging my finger. And twice today I was guilty of, you know, doing what I usually condemn, and they both were like, oh, I pulled out in front of this lady and she was like, what are you doing? I was like, it's okay, love, I had it, I judged it, it's all safe, I made it. And another guy literally wagged his finger and he was like, I was like, oh, what? This world is so judgy today. Like, I'm fine, I'm safe. I was like, oh my God, that's what I usually do. They're my mirrors. Thank
Yeah.
you, thank you.
Yeah.
So moving along into, because this is my new area that when I heard this word today about
Mm-hmm.
integration,
Mm.
because I love the idea, and I spoke on video yesterday about, you know, you upgrade your phone, you're upgrading your software, so it's not
Mm.
just this fluffy, we're becoming enlightened spiritual beings, and it's like, what does that feel and look like? It's like we're literally changing and shifting our DNA.
Mm.
And because I've definitely felt this with my womb space, even to the point of intention, it was like, as soon as I set an intention to clear up my diet, I
Mm.
literally felt my womb like a little tiny ping. Like, I can't describe it. It wasn't a ping. It was like I could feel it being sucked in. Okay, that's the kind of feeling, a contracted feeling, but it wasn't a bad feeling. And I felt my tummy go in just
Mm.
from the thought of, I'm gonna stop all that crappy food.
Mm-hmm.
And it is literally like, what? How is this working? I know there's a book about think yourself thin.
Mm.
It's a real thing, right? So I'm like, I wanted to kind of expand into the fact that we are literally changing our vibration
Mm-hmm.
in the 3D and in the physical realm, and that's why you see some people. And I saw something again about people looking younger, and it
Mm.
is because we're increasing that health and vitality and energy within ourselves. And in healing sessions, we
Mm-hmm.
literally look different.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely. Because when you start to embody another frequency of energy and you open up more to who you really are, with that love, that creativity, that power,
Mm,
that energy of infinite unconditional well-being and wealth, it's like it sort of infuses your physical body with more light. And I mean, you've met Swami G. He's actually, initially I thought he was a 200-year-old yogi, but I was talking to a family recently who they believe he's about 1,800 years old. And he's just
wow.
like, he's mastered the physical, he's mastered his physical body, his energy, everything. And so we absolutely can heal our bodies. We're so much more powerful than we give ourselves credit for, you know, and we've simply
Mm,
forgotten who we are. And I think ascension and awakening is really just a matter of breaking down everything that's not us and coming back into alignment with truth of who we really are. And yeah, and I think, as you find, like you were just saying, as you start to awaken more and more and more, and you're filled with more of the love of who you are, you feel this desire to eat healthy, to look after your body, to nurture yourself. And you have more sort of self-love and respect for yourself and your body, and you take better care.
mm,
Whereas when we're in that ego, a lot of us can tend to sort of hurt ourselves, eat shit, abuse
mm,
our bodies. You know, it's a different level of energy, if that makes
mm.
sense.
And it's funny because I thought of Swamiji today. I thought of him
Mm.
because in his presence, I could not cover up any dialogue. That's when when I said, as soon as we went to step into his room, I was like, oh, I'm not worthy. And
Mm.
I hadn't felt that 2 seconds ago. It was literally like I'd literally stepped into that room. with his vibration and went, oh, but I cannot. Like, I know I'm going to do this, but that's the feeling I've got. Um, and yeah, and that vibration we were talking about, like alcohol. I'm saying to people, I miss liking alcohol, but I just don't anymore. It's like, damn it,
Yeah.
it just doesn't do anything for me. If anything, it brings me down.
Exactly,
And
because it's sort of different energy patterns, and it's like what
mm,
you're a match for. And
mm,
once you've like vibrated to a certain frequency of energy, it's like anything that's not a match to that frequency, you
mm,
just cannot tolerate. It's in relationships, it's in business, it's in money, it's in work,
mm,
it's in alcohol, food, everything, because it's all energy. It's all, energy matching up with like frequencies of energy. So the higher you raise your frequency, those vibrations of alcohol and drugs and heavy foods, it's
mm,
like you get
mm.
repelled by them because you're just a completely different frequency.
And with I was going to say quickly that reflects in your home as well. I've done a huge
Mm,
purge, nice, beautiful clearance. Everywhere I look is just light gold. I've got rose gold, clarity, views out of my window, like just to get rid of the clutter.
mm,
But when we're saying about vibration and relationships as well, and we were sort of touching on narcissism, and it was interesting about the kind of nudge. I'll say it's a nudge when you get a nudge from the universe or spirit or angels or your guardian angel, whatever you like to uh, translate that to,
mm,
is almost questioning it. So somebody who I was interested in, being able to go, no, I'm just gonna literally had a declutter of people in my life
mhm,
to the extent of I'm not going to get into that conversation. I'm not going to get drawn into that group. I'm not going to apply. And then, of course, someone's come back in. I actually blocked them, and they've come back in. They want a conversation, and now I've gone through all these other up leveling and things. It's
mm,
not an ego self worth thing. It's just like I can see you now. I can see the level you're vibrating, and I'm not going to get nasty, and I don't have to condemn or get into an argument. I can just, it's enough for me to just see it and not get drawn in. I think that kind of brings back to that unity and defensiveness. We don't have to
mm,
point the finger, like you say. It's like, I can see that now. No, I'm still not going to I'm not going to vibrate that level, and
yeah,
focusing on what you do want to draw into that. And then those
mm,
reflecting, those relationships and people reflecting back, you're like, wow, this really is, it's a thing
yeah.
that, yeah, and
It's
it's,
that
it's
saying,
not,
the vibe attracts your tribe.
yeah, it's almost like the basic stuff we learn, but then when you practice it and it's in front of you, it
Mm,
becomes clearer and you go, oh, now this really makes sense.
yeah, and
Um,
you absolutely.
mm,
I think as well, just quickly, that's coming through. I just wanted to mention about you talking about people and stuff as well, that with Ascension and when you start to grow and change, you tend to and I've had this happen a few times in my life, suddenly you'll be like, oh, where did all my friends go? And
mm,
it's like, oh, I've got no friends anymore. And that really happened for me probably about the end of 2021, around October, November. We had huge trauma inflicted on us here by the government, through the mandates and all the crazy shit that happened that split the
mm,
community. It was horrific. And yeah, and it was just sort of like almost like this line was drawn that you couldn't be around certain people anymore. It was just like you had people that were very negative and toxic, and then you had those that were like, well, I don't want to be in that. And yeah, it was very, very interesting to see. And I think that's coming back to the Ascension stuff as well. You'll find that as you start to awaken and go into higher frequencies of consciousness, you will find that certain relationships will fall away. You might find certain jobs will fall away. Like literally your whole life can feel like it's just falling to shit. And I
mm,
sort of say to people, like, hold the void, trust the process. Like it's not a bad thing when everything starts to fall apart. It's actually a good thing because the universe is dismantling anything and everything that is no longer a vibrational match to where you're going. And it has to come in and clean out the space to then create space for the new things that are in alignment and integrity with your new level. And like you were just saying, sometimes you'll get people that'll kind of sneak back in and kind of be like, hey, I want to poke
mm.
you. And
Yep.
but when you're solid in yourself, you have solid boundaries, you know what you will and will not tolerate. And
Mm,
you're like, no, I don't have to play your fucking game anymore. See ya.
mm,
And
mm.
you don't
And
buy into it.
And it can, I think initially it can feel scary. I was very scared because I haven't had a lot of stability in my life, so I've had to really work hard at creating it. So then when that falls down, you're like, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
But when you get used to it, it's actually a really lovely feeling, like taking your clothes off and jumping in the ocean.
Yeah.
It's like it's nice that things fall away. Like, oh, this is good, and you can look back and go, how was I so attached to that thing, like holding onto an object?
Yeah.
And that's why I love to keep reselling my stuff. It's like, oh, I have no emotional attachment to hardly anything anymore because
Yeah.
push comes to shove, you run out the door. As long as it's you and your son, that's
Hmm.
really all you need, you know.
Yeah.
So it can feel really nice and juicy. So then to sum up as well, because I really wanted to give some practical tips, and we've
Hmm.
talked about having a toolkit.
Yeah.
Um, we're both mums. We've both got young children, and we're both business owners. So you're going, how? Like I used to just book on, week or 2 week retreats, which gives you that time to process all these things. And
Yeah.
like I mentioned, Easter and Christmas, it's like a forced holiday. It's like a forced immersion of you're going to deal with this shit now because you've stopped working. Um, and I've I've read in some beautiful books. I'm still reading by Elizabeth, the Big Magic. Oh, I can never remember her name.
Mm.
Elizabeth.
Gilbert.
Thank you. About allowing the fact, and I love the fact that if you imagine, well, we are in a big collective. I imagine like a big saucepan or like a frying pan, and we're all like little tiny little eggs in there, right?
Yeah.
And one can be cooking and getting all the flow, and one of them can just be sitting back and relaxing. And that it's okay to take that downtime because others are still creating and getting the message into the world. And I loved that
Yeah.
because it
That's
gave me
nice.
permission.
Hmm.
Gave me permission to go into that hole in that womb. And when you were talking before, very loud and clear, it was like withdrawing. It's like withdrawing from that drama, withdrawing from toxicity, withdrawing from your friends. And I won't say it's addictive, but I actually really enjoy it now. It's like I love not having my phone go ding 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 with 1,000 messages and all
Yeah.
these conversations in my head. It's like, oh,
Absolutely.
there's peace, and it's okay to withdraw. And actually, we need to create the time and space, even if it means working your butt off to get your child into bed really early, so you give yourself 2 or 3 hours at night time.
Absolutely. And I think what it's interesting you just mentioning the womb there as well, because every month, I know we speak about the womb stuff, but the wild woman that comes out once a month in your cycle, she's a really powerful time. She actually is a powerful time to bring up your shadows and any unresolved trauma and things that don't serve you. So even as a woman, you get that opportunity every month to clean out and
Mm.
ascend to new levels every single month. So your wild woman phase is kind of when you feel like retreating, you're moody, you're irritable, you're shitty. She's a part of you that hates going to the supermarket because everything fucking annoys you. It's like in your head, you're like, everybody get the fuck out of my way. When I'm in my wild woman phase, I don't let her go to the supermarket or on the road because she's just a bitch. But she's like the part of us that gives us that opportunity every month to clean out and ascend. So that's just something that sort of wanted to come through there. Anyway, sorry, Amanda, I'll let you finish what you were saying there.
No, I love it because there's a lot of us that's working with the womb and the womb space
Mm.
and the stages of life as well. And even staying in those cycle as we go through menopause. I did read somewhere that when you're highly fertile, we're usually syncing with the full moon. And then
Mm.
as you become older through menopause, it's usually the new moon. And I'm
Mm.
very up and down. I'm very in between. I feel it just around the corner.
Yeah.
I don't want to manifest it, but it is. I'm like every month. I'm like, am I perimenopausal? Is it happening? Is it happening? And again, just to not attach it, we keep saying about trusting the process and trusting
Mm.
yourself, and
Yes.
that's that. Remove the ego, and it's almost like you can just park it. It's like, okay, I know you're there. I haven't completely dissolved you. I can't, go on a retreat or take some Aya, or I can't deal with that right now. But just stand over there enough time for me to just be in my space, go deep within myself, and if I don't know what this is about, to be okay with that and go, just like you say, asking our divinities to help release it. And I really wanted to mention Kali Ma because, again, in one of my readings, it came through about Kali Ma is that she loves to eat up this shit. And that put a different spin on it. So, for example, there's still a little bit of guilt. This is going to sound crazy. A little bit of guilt. If I'm sitting here trying to process something, and I'll go, angels, can you help me? It's a bit like, sorry to bother you guys. Know you're really busy. And when I was little, I honestly thought, God's got more important things to do than worry about my little stupid stuff.
God
Right?
within you as you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I know, right? But because that's how we're taught, yeah, at school, and it's like that's separate and blah blah.
It's a
So
conditional
working,
relationship.
yeah. So there's still a little bit of that block of angels. This is too much for me to deal with. Can you take it away, please? And that usually works. But getting into the space of imagining Kylie Ma, literally a black goddess with her tongue sticking out, like, yeah, ready for action. She's a complete wild woman, that she wants to kill this pain and death so that a rebirth can come through. And it was literally worded like that. She loves to eat this shit up. It's like she wants it, like, give it to her. And I love that visual image, if that speaks to anybody, because it's like, she's like, come on, give it to me, come on, like, I love it, just give it some more. You're like, okay, have this pain, have this hurt, like, I don't want it anymore, you deal with it. And it can really help relieve the pressure. And then we're just like, okay, and to let that gentleness then come through with, feminine energy, to go. And it happened to me the other night. It was like, dear one, just get off the floor, okay, like, this may not be over, but go and make a hot tea, just go watch some Netflix, you done well, it's all good. And it was like, oh, are you sure that's okay? Don't have any more pain and suffering to release. Am I done for now? And then, yeah, and then you say a lot, to be gentle with yourself, and to give you permission to be gentle with yourself, with
I
all of
think
us.
just give yourself permission just to accept what is in that moment. Like whatever's coming up in you, it's not good or bad, it just is. And I think in relation to what you were just saying, like, another simple process that you can also do is just even having a large sheet of paper and then just writing out what's coming through for you, and then getting some crayons or paints or pencils and just expressing the emotion of it out through the colours. Like, let it be messy and organic. That can also be a very simple process and tool to use, or meditation. But I think the thing that just quickly, like what I think makes ascension or healing hard for people is because we resist the emotions of what's coming up. It's like you've got to lean into those edges and, feel it to heal it, sort of feel it to heal it. And rather than suppressing it and denying it or judging it, like saying, oh, I shouldn't feel like this, or, it's like, okay, right now, I love, bless, and accept the one within me who's having a fucking mental breakdown right now. I love, bless, and accept the one within me who hates life and wants everyone to fuck off. Like, start bringing that love, kindness, and compassion to that part of you. And I think just quickly as well, like integration, you can integrate while you're still creating, while you're still building things, while you're still being a student and also a teacher and whatever. So we don't always necessarily just have to kind of, burn everything and disappear into a cave for a year to integrate, like as much as, but the realities is of life right now, especially when we're parents, is that we don't, like you said, we don't necessarily always have that time to just go to a cave for 2 weeks. So you can carve time out in your day where, okay, this evening when the kids are all asleep, an hour to myself, I'm just going to sit with this and use whatever the tools that you have, whether it's calling on Kali Ma or the divine or your angels or that painting process or a meditation that you have or quantum freedom healing, whatever it is. But just creating some space for you to just let it out, let it be expressed, so then you're released of it.
Definitely. And yeah, to know that we're all going through this, and there is no right or wrong, like you say, it's whatever calls to you and works for you. And to be unafraid and bold enough to go where you're being called. I saw a guy very quickly on a video today, and he was like, oh, he wants to learn all these different things and he's not sure which one to go for. And I thought the simple answer is just keep following your gut. Just keep going to the one that you're being called to, and then one of them will eventually grab you, and you'll dive deeper into it if that's what your purpose is. We're not always supposed to. We're trying to analyze everything and work it out
Overthink
and
shit.
know everything. Yeah, and it's like it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about the how or the why. It's just the what. Most of the time.
Yeah. And just
Okay.
coming home to this day, like this, the other thing too, like you don't have to worry about yesterday or tomorrow. Like this moment, your life is always now. And, you know, this, whatever you're going through, this too shall pass. It's like, I think one of the things that I've noticed just very quickly is how, especially in the spiritual community, people get really caught up in this whole, oh, my awakening ascension symptoms and, oh, you know, the drama of it all and the ego and the suffering of it all. Like you can actually like get so good at clearing your system that something that might have triggered and traumatized you for weeks and months and years on end, you can shift it in 5 seconds. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And I think people can get really caught up in this identity of constantly needing to heal. And I think there's a really beautiful, like we're always evolving, we're always healing. It's a never ending fucking job. But Sasha Cobra said a really interesting thing. She said, you know, it's great that you're doing all this healing work, but when are you actually going to stop and build some strong foundations and grow
mm.
from there? And I thought, yeah, that's a
That
very
was
good point.
How was that? Suck it up, sister. It was like I hate wallowing anyway. I hate wallowing. But yeah, it's just
Mm.
like just suck it up, let's go. And it is that balance of be gentle with yourself, lean into it,
Mm.
process it, with that contrast of suck it up, let's carry on, let's move forward. It's all,
Mm.
it's all trust the process. Just trust
Exactly.
the
Yeah.
process.
And just, I think, very quickly before we finish up as well, like something that I found moving through, especially when you run your own business, you're going to hit walls of resistance, you know, heavy energy, doubt, insecurity, self sabotage. Like, you know, that's all part of it when you start to grow and build something as well. Like, you get ascension systems in that. And I think something that I found is really helpful process at the end of the day is that the emotions in your body ultimately don't have control over you. They're just your intuitive guidance system. You, the divine, are fucking more powerful than any emotion, any star, planet, any of that sort of stuff. And so it's like, okay, right now I'm feeling this, but I'm still going to show up and I'm going to create something. You know, I'm going to move through this and I'm still going to do something. And I find just even when you don't necessarily feel like it, just creating something or sharing something can also help shift the energy of it, as opposed to kind of contracting and going, oh, I can't do it because I don't feel like it. It's like,
100%.
yeah, it's sort of like
100%.
that's something I found I've moved through recently. It's like, oh, hang on, there's a shadow energy, a self sabotage pattern coming up here. Well, I'm going to, rather than go into that contraction of it, I'm going to lean into it. And I'm going to fucking create something that's the complete opposite of that
Mm.
energy. If
Man,
that,
poets and musicians, been doing it
yeah.
all for centuries. And I read recently, we either create or consume.
Mm-hmm.
And as human species, our consumption is killing us. So,
Mm.
yes, take that rest, and we do need to consume in order to nourish ourselves. But
Mm.
overconsumption, yeah, it's like, hey, shift it into creation. It's made it really clear for me, and I'm like, ooh, am I consuming or am I creating?
Yeah.
Like balancing
It's
it.
you're a creator. Yeah, you're here to play
Mm,
and create with the energy that creates worlds. And like the energy of the world, energy that creates worlds is within you as you. And it's like you're here to manipulate material matter. You're here to play. You're here to create. You're not here to just suffer and survive and get by and live in ego and 3D
mm,
consciousness. It's
mm,
like you're
mm,
here to grow and evolve. And I
mm,
think we've forgotten that we're here to create, whereas people have given their power away to government institutions, the external world,
mm.
and money and all the rest of it. And they've forgotten, oh, fuck, I'm actually the creator of all this. It's
Yeah,
just like,
yeah.
wake up.
And actually, yeah, and you got me there recently. Somebody, I was in that wallowing, moany bit of like, oh, this and this and this, and they reflected back and went, aren't your teachings the fact that you manifest and create your life? And I was like, damn you. Yes, and it was great. It pulled me up. It pulled me up on my shit. I was like, "You're damn fucking straight," and I'm gonna go and manifest 5 grand in my bank. Bam, and it happened. I was like,
Yay.
"What?" I know, right? And I know we get going, and we're like, "Oh, this has come through, and that's come through, and that's come through." Um,
Mm,
a lot of light workers, if light workers are listening to this, that have been called, and we're the ones that have been sort of accelerated into ascension, is being unafraid to speak our truth, just very quickly to focus on the intention behind it. That kind of relates back to earlier about defensiveness and getting caught up in all these triggers and groups and stuff of the ego. It's like
mm,
we need to speak our truth and stand up and be unafraid of that. Just checking the intention behind it. Is the intention to help? Is the intention to heal? Is the intention to make others wrong?
mm.
And I don't know where that came through. When you were talking, it was like, yeah, we've got to learn to use our voice. We've got to speak our truth. That's really that's part of the ascension and
Let
being
what's in you out.
mastery.
Yeah,
But
just
yeah,
letting what's in you out.
yeah, intention and bringing it back to love and trust and there's so much
Beautiful.
more. I feel like I could talk to you all
But
day.
we've
I
promised
love
30 minutes. I think we've gone over 30 minutes.
only 9 minutes. It's okay. We've done really well. Sam 33's entered as well. Hi, Sam. So any last words on Ascension? We've done well. I think we've done really well.
Yeah, I think just, trust the process. Trust that, even when things are falling apart and looks like, shit's hitting the fan, it's like it's all happening for you, not to you. And I think, just be very aware of that shadow voice or that victim energy that kind of wants to keep you in that, oh, woe is me. And recognize that you're not that voice. You're not your pain. You're not your suffering. You're none of those things, because who you are in divine truth is whole, complete, perfect, just as you are. And I think we forget that and we get caught up in the stories in our head. And just coming home to this present moment, and that this too shall pass. Use the tools that you have and trust and have faith that everything's working out for you.
And almost welcome it when the shit's hitting the fan. It's like, all right, here we go
Yeah,
again.
that's
And
it.
it is like a bicep muscle, whether you think of it as a faith muscle or whatever you do, the more you go through it, I can't say the easier it gets, but the more efficient you are at dealing with it, the quicker it
Yeah,
is,
filling
with
it up.
ease and grace.
Absolutely. And I think
Yeah.
put yourself in the room of people that trigger the fuck out of you. Like, I've got teachers and mentors that I I sort of get into their rooms and pull up a chair because I know that their energy is going to trigger and activate the hell out of me and bring me up a lot of stuff to get to that next level. So don't be afraid of being activated and triggered and growing and evolving. Like, that's what we're here for. We're never going to get it done. It's forever. It's eternal. We're always growing and evolving.
And that you're never alone. Because I said to a friend yesterday, I'm like, I'm sick of this evolving stuff. I'm sick of learning my lessons. I'm sick of fucking I just want to stop just for a second. And and to give over to that. And in a recent healing session, someone said, there's no need to be nervous because you'll only release what spirit is ready for you to release. And when you put it like that, it's like, oh yeah, this is not about, oh, am I ready for this? That's the ego, that's the I. It's like, look, the divine, just hand it over to the divine. Whatever comes up. It's kind of over to you,
Yeah.
and that's really, and the with Ascension, sorry, this came up earlier and I forgot to mention it. It feels like there's a slowing down. I'm very high energy, but that's been a mixture of anxiety as well, that kind of chaos energy. But the more I ascend and the more I process, I'm slowing down my rhythms, and it feels like we're tuning into nature and her rhythms. I think I was another reading I was researching. So it's almost like, and that's why people have had differences with time. It's almost like we're getting our timings wrong. Like, is it 4 o'clock or 4:30? Like, and I said, it's not. This is happening to everybody. This is not just a thing. We're coming away from that structure and more into our cycle and being able to slow down. And because with the slowness comes the peace.
Yeah, that's it.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you
beautiful.
so much, Elle. I love
Thank
you. I'm so glad
you.
you're
Love you
back.
too.
I'm so glad. It's been very lonely without you. Anyone listening are like, man, this chick just fucking talks. Where's the other one? Who knows her stuff?
Thank you for keeping the show going in my absence. I appreciate it.
You're so welcome. I'll talk to you soon. How can anyone get hold of you? Because you have also released, you've written a freaking book.
Oh yes, very.
Uh,
Oh my god, I've just been like all over the shop. Yeah, no, I think 6 steps to unleash your soul's unique purpose, truth and gifts. So it takes you just through some 6 simple beautiful steps to just cut the fear, clear the pain, remove the limits, and then activating your unique purpose, your truth, your gifts, and then how to co-create with God to bring to live your soul's purpose and create the life and wealth that you desire your way. So yeah, it's really, really beautiful, simple book. I've been teaching those 6 steps for years, and I finally got it down into book format. So you can get it at like Amazon, any of the sort of like online bookstores. It's available. It's only available as a Kindle ebook kind of thing download at the moment, but I will be organising hard copies soon. So
yes, I
yeah,
love a
so
hard
6
copy.
steps, 6 steps to unleash your soul's purpose, truth and gifts. That's what it's
By
for.
Is your author title, is it by Elle Divine?
Ellen Divine, yep, and it's also at womanofwealth.love. So I've been creating some new branding, new sort of, I don't know, something else wanted to be birthed through me, and it's like, yeah, this is this is a new paradigm, and she's all about, like you were just saying, moon cycle rhythms, nature cycles, creating an alignment, integrity with your unique cycle, your flow. So it's a whole different energy coming through. And I've noticed as well a lot of entrepreneurs online as well as saying they can, like they're saying exactly what you were saying, they're feeling this shift taking place where these old kind of masculine patriarchal structures are dissolving, and it's more coming back into what is your unique creative flow and way of doing things.
Beautiful. And to focus on what you want to manifest, because there's lots of theories out there, and lots of people, it's like, oh, this system's going to fall down, and that's going to fall down, and we're just very bringing it in conclusion to what you said at the beginning about 3D or 5D and where you want to be and what you're prepared to let go of is focusing on what you want to be in the world. It's like, do you want to tune into the love and light channel, or do you want to stay down there in the pits? And I know where I want to be. So keep that focus there. Keep focusing on the love. Keep focusing on the light. Keep challenging yourself. Keep learning by buying books, going on courses, finding mentors. Like we are here with our own mentors doing the same thing. So, I will include that when we publish this episode. I'll
Oh,
include all
thank you,
those.
darling.
And I certainly would be buying a copy, and the other copy that you mentioned by Lisa
Oh,
Lister.
thank you. Yeah, Lisa Lister, Sorceress is a beautiful book. So that's another one, yeah, I highly recommend if starting to connect to the God consciousness within you and creation. And yeah, it's very beautiful. Very beautiful.
So much
Yeah.
out there. Thank you
Yeah.
so much, gorgeous.
Thank
And I'll
you,
speak to you
beautiful.
soon. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.